Hey you guys, it's Amy, the Invincibility Coach, and I'm coming at you with another Lessons from the Peloton. So 2 weeks have gone by now. There's 1 week left of the Tour de France, and so I want to talk in this video about depression. So one of the things that I've been thinking about this week as I've been listening to interviews with certain cyclists, some that aren't even in this year's race, I am reminded about a syndrome that they've named in sports. I'm pretty sure they call it like a post-Olympic depression syndrome, okay? And essentially what that means is when an athlete in particular, right? And remember, this is lessons from the Peloton that we can take to our lives, right? You don't have to be a cyclist. I'm not. I just love the sport, right? So don't think that I'm like, sitting up here like, got all these things. I'm extracting things out of this race so that I can like kind of flip them and manipulate them a little bit and present them to you about for life lessons, right? Okay, so post-Olympic depression syndrome is this thing that some athletes have go through. Michael Phelps has talked about it. Shaun White's talked about it. Mark Cavendish has talked about it. Okay, so it is this thing where you have worked so hard to get where you are to compete at a certain level. Okay, so sidebar, we do this in our lives. We work really hard in order to get to these places. Maybe it's to pay our bills. Maybe it's to get promoted. Whatever, right? We all pretty much, I hope, have these goals. Well, specific to athletes, they spend so much time, right, toward this one goal, and then let's say they get the medal, right? At the very least, they run the race, they swim the race, they ski it, they jump it, whatever, right? And when it's over, especially if they've achieved what they wanted to achieve, they go through this period of like, now what do I do? And it's really devastating to a lot of athletes because there is nothing to take up that giant amount of time that they spent to get to where they are. And it is literally like they have hiked up a mountain and then they're at the top of the mountain and they feel what it's like to be at the top of the mountain, and then it's like there's no path. Like it stops. And so they're standing here on the edge of this mountain or cliff or achievement, right? And there's nothing. Because there is not, in many cases, there isn't a pathway that's been carved out to decelerate, right? Okay, so stay with me on this, you guys. I know I'm kind of going a little bit deep, but it's like, this makes sense. This makes sense, okay? For our lives, we can have a post-achievement depression syndrome. Some people stay in it for a really long time for many reasons, right? But I would like, if you're listening to this and you're into this, listening to me, take a step back and I want you to think about what a depression is. If it were a road, a depression is a dip. It's a depression in the road, okay? Now, I always like to kind of speak in extremes sometimes in order to make a point. And here's the extreme I'm going to say right now. If we had a road, if our life was a road, right? We've heard these metaphors millions of times. And if that road was perfect tarmac or a perfect path, perfect meaning like there were no depressions or hills or mountains or valleys or brush to get through, right? If it was so just like, can you imagine how boring that would be? I mean, it would be so predictable. Some people would be like, oh man, that'd be nice if you knew my life. Yeah, you know what? If you knew my life, I say that too. We need to, I feel like, understand what a depression is. It is a dip. It's a dip. And if we understand that they exist, and we also understand that there are going to be some coming, and usually I would be willing to bet that depression depressions always follow a type of achievement, right? Now, for some people, they're living in the past, right? Remember when I did that? Remember when I did that? Man, that was so awesome. And we see that person today and they're just like total glum, right? Well, they're still in that depression from that achievement back in the day. It could be years. Or it could be last month. And you're like, wow, so-and-so's really been blue for like the last 60 days or 30 days or whatever. Take a look back at what happened before the depression. I'm serious. Whether it was last week or 10 years ago, I bet that there was an achievement pre-depression. Okay? So how do we fix that? Well, that's what I do. That's what I do for a living. I'm not going to do it on this video because I don't know who you are. I don't know what your achievement was, nor do I know how long you might have been in your depression, right? But it is fixable. And sure, you could just go get a prescription. I get that. Sometimes that's the answer, right? If there's serious imbalances, but I like to challenge people and be like, well, let's look at what you're actually doing, right? Sometimes in order to do that, we have to look at what you're not doing, right? So anyway, lessons from the Peloton then is that when you're riding on a road, there are going to be hills, just like these riders are experiencing right now in the Tour de France, right? There are sick hills, you guys, that go through the Alps, they go through the Pyrenees, they go through all kinds of weather. Like I've said before, they crash, they're like bloody, they get back on their bike. Should they? I don't know, but they do, right? I mean, I'm not in the business of like, should they? I don't know. It's like the whole devil's advocate thing just makes me want to puke sometimes. So anyway, So we're talking about depression, right? And yet I'm all like I'm, on performance enhancers, which I guess technically I am because I've had some coffee, right? But let's really look at depression for what it is. It's a dip. It's a dip in the road. And in our lives, I believe that they follow achievement. So I want you to look back. What have you achieved? And how did you feel after you achieved it? Did you have that moment or moments or weeks or months or years where you're like, I did that thing, now what? Great, life's done. I'm here to tell you it's not, okay? So check me out if you want to go deeper into this. Otherwise, I want you to take lessons from what you see in your life, be willing to take a step through the depression, right? And be willing to climb out of it. We can figure out ways to do that. All right, you guys? I love you to pieces. There's one more week of this race. I'll probably do another lessons from the Peloton, right? Hopefully I won't bore you to pieces. Hey, you guys, it's only 3 weeks out of the whole year, and then I'm going to be on to the next awesome thing, okay? Because it's what I do. I love you to pieces. Peace out.